sermon it's going to be very important and one of the most important that I've ever preached. And because of that, I'm doing something completely different that I've never done. So right now, I'd like to ask Teddy, Brian, and Bruce. Bruce will be on this side, Brian in the middle, Teddy on this side. I actually printed my entire sermon out, word for word for you. That way you can take it home, study it. I asked that every married couple get one. If you're single, you get your own. That way we make sure we have enough. But I think this is probably one of the most important sermons I've ever preached. And I also think that it's one of the positives and best things about this church. So I printed it out word for you. I hope you have it. Don't just throw it in the trash. On the back of that is your prayer list and announcements. So please, everybody, make sure you get one. Guys, I appreciate y'all for handing them out. Now, last week, we had revival and homecoming here. We had a guest speaker, Brian, who comes here, and he works for church relations for Johnson Bible College. And he came, and what he does is he travels to over 200 churches a year of all sizes, and he looks at those churches. He gives the preacher, the leaders in the church, pointers of what they're doing good, what they can do better. And he labeled us, I love this, he said that we as a church are a unicorn. To you that don't know what a unicorn means, it means we are rare. And he went through all these points, all these reasons that we as a church are rare. All these awesome reasons. It's very rare that there's a church in the middle of nowhere that averages over 100 people. Over the last 6 months as a church, we're averaging 129 people a Sunday. It's very rare that a country church has 30 people. So we're a unicorn. It's very rare that a country church has kids. We have over 25 to 30 every Sunday. It's very rare that a church this size has teenagers. It's very rare that the church this size has young adults. It's very rare that a church in the country has all 5 generations involved in their church. We are a unicorn. I got to thinking about it, and I did a lot of studying this week, talked to a lot of preachers, and I decided that I would put this sermon together to encourage y'all, to continue to be rare, to encourage y'all how special y'all are. I want you to realize that it's rare to have all 5 generations present as a church. I want to encourage you to remember that as a church, our job and what we don't want to just survive. We want to thrive. I want to encourage y'all that as a church, we want this church to be strong and alive and thriving long after we are dead and gone. I want to encourage y'all to remember that our kids are so important. And our church relies on them, not just now, but in the future. During the first year of my marriage, I realized that my wife and I are completely different in some ways. Has that ever happened to y'all? Samantha plans things carefully, intentionally, and thoroughly. I like to fly by the seat of my pants. When we go places, she likes to get there late. And that's mainly because she has to deal with 5 kids, 6 counting myself. I like being there 20 minutes early. We're different. But we realize that the differences between us could either be a source of conflict or building blocks to some of our greatest strengths. And I'm fortunate not to be married to somebody just like me. You see, our differences have created opportunities for us to mature, for her strengths to compensate for my weaknesses, and vice versa. Our differences have led to new and exciting experiences, and we have been immensely blessed because of it. Now you might be thinking, well, Kurt, why in the world did you just share that with us? Well, it's because I want you to realize that differences between people, that even differences between people in the church do not have to divide you. In Ephesians chapter 4, Paul says, don't be proud, be completely gentle, be patient, put up with one another in love, remain as one, let peace keep you together. The Holy Spirit makes you one in every way, so remain as one. You know, it doesn't take long to find out in the church what I discovered in my marriage. There's differences between us all here, isn't there? Look around this room. There's differences between every single one of us. No two of us are alike, and I love it. It would be a boring place if we were all the same. In Colossians chapter 3, verse 11, Paul points out that in the church, there were differences in race, there was differences in education, there was differences in wealth, there was differences in gender, there was males and females in the church. And at times, these differences will challenge us. And that's why Paul says, try your best to remain as one. There will be times in this church where we annoy each other, okay? Right? Y'all know it. I'll annoy y'all, y'all annoy others. We're going to annoy each other. But the Bible says, Paul says, try your best to remain as one. One thing that excites me about Mayo Christian Church is our diversity. And in this morning, I'm going to talk. It's not going to be an hour-long sermon. Y'all excited about that? No sugar is going to drop today, okay? But I believe that this is one of the most important sermons, and I could have made this an hour. It was a challenge not to make it an hour, okay? But I'm going to talk about the generations that make up our church and what is so special about all 5 generations represented here this morning. I want to remind you that God uses all kinds of people. People with different gifts, people that have different preferences, people that have different backgrounds, people that are of different ages. He uses all of that to build His church. Now, before I mention these generations, I need to say up front that there is some discrepancy between the years. There might be a year off in each one of these, but that doesn't matter. I also want you to know that one size does not fit all. And sociologists have lumped you into certain groups according to when you were born. But one size doesn't fit all. It's like y'all that got 3 kids or more. You know, you raise your first kid different. They're the first. They're all special. The second one comes along, you forget about the first, right? That one goes to the side. The third one comes along, the last one, that's the baby, right? They can do no wrong. So we all raise our kids differently. So there is a little discrepancy here. One size does not fit all. With that being said, the first generation was born from 1924, and all this is on your paper there. First generation was born from 1924 to 45. Again, the years might be off a year or two, but it doesn't really matter. The first generation was born from 1924 to 1945. This generation experienced World War II. Some of you remember the hardships and the sacrifices that were made during those years. And many of you in this generation lost family and friends during the war. The ideas of God and country mean a whole lot to you in this generation. Sociologists named you the Builders' generation because you played a huge part in the building and expansion of the United States of America after the war. If you're a part of this Builders' generation, will you please stand up for one moment? Give them a hand. Thank you. Thank you. The next generation was born from 1946 to 1965. You are called the baby boomers. You were born after World War II, during the boom years economically as a country. Jobs were plentiful, and anybody that worked had access to the American dream. The United States during this time period was rich and powerful. We were the leader of the free world. But it didn't come with some problems. Problems that included Korea and Vietnam. It was during your time period that prayer and the Bible were taken out of our schools. It seemed to be a great time to be a teenager. But as you became adults, things weren't always easy for the boomer generation. If you're part of the baby boomer generation, would you please stand up? Look around the room, guys. There was 4 in the first. There's about 20 in the second. Give them a hand. The third generation was born from 1966 to 1985, depending on who you talk to. This is my generation. You were called the buster generation because a lot of things got busted in our lifetime. This is where mainly the disintegration of the family unit, where moral standards and leadership became weak and shaky. This is when the drug culture really took off. All that and more caused my generation to have little respect for anyone or anything. I promise there's some good to come out of my generation later, but if you're a part of that generation, will you please stand up? I want to say I am so thankful for y'all. I am so proud of y'all. And our church and our country needs y'all. Give them a hand. Again, there's a year or two discrepancy among sociologists and even church folks on these. The next generation. If you were born from 1986 to 2005, please stand up. Give them a hand. And don't sit down. Don't sit down. Look at this group, folks. Look at the impact that this group has had on our church. Can y'all imagine if this group was not at this church? I cannot. You can have a seat. You are called the millennial generation. Sociologists are still analyzing the data about you. You were the first generation to be fully educated in colleges. Sociologists, you've made them pull their hair out. They're still arguing about you because the results are not what they had hoped for, what they imagined, or what they expected. But they also say that inside and outside the church, all together, it's not completely your fault. Your parents and grandparents dropped the ball somewhere along the way. And you were the first generation that started to get babied and coddled. So it's not all your fault. And the fifth generation that we are blessed as a church to have a whole lot of. They can't even get y'all's names straight. Generation Y or Z, whatever you want to call it. They were born from 2006 on. Most of that generation is in our church, is in children's church or the nursery right now. But if you happen to be in here and you were born from 2006 on, will you please stand? Stay standing. Stay standing. This is one of the reasons that we are a unicorn church. We have a whole lot of y'all represented in this church. You are not only the future of the church, you are the now of the church. You can have a seat. As a congregation, we are so blessed to serve all 5 congregations. And it's not always easy to do that, especially being the preacher. I don't complain about my job. I have the best job in the world. But can any of you cannot, because you don't have to, you cannot imagine what it is like being a preacher trying to lead 5 different generations into the future for the Lord. You think that's easy? With all your likes, dislikes, and preferences that you're going to find out about in just a second, it's not always easy. May I add, it's always been a pleasure and an honor to serve you. In Acts chapter 13, verse 36, Paul tells us that David carried out God's purpose while he lived. That's talking about King David, the great man after God's own heart. He carried out God's purpose while he lived. And that is exactly what God is calling us to do as a church. And so what we're going to do is we're going to look at our church and how our different generations relate to our church. When it comes to church, the builders have some definite preferences. The builder's generation. You like a well-planned out, executed, no games kind of worship service. Your idea of the right worship service is one filled with reverence and hymns. The sermon that appeals to you are sermons that explain what happened and why it happened and how God is trying to work in us today. What motivates a builder is a sense of duty. You feel responsible to those that come after you. And so you sacrifice. You give of your time. You give of your talent. And you give of your money. Not for your own benefit, but for the benefit of others. If you're a builder, please stand up again. Y'all gonna get some exercise today. Bobby and Billy, you 4, I want you to know that as a church, we are indebted to you for the contributions that you have made and that you continue to make today. I thank all 4 of you for being who you are, and I love you. You can have a seat. When it comes to the baby boomers, they got preferences too. But they're not as concerned about programs. No, they are concerned about building relationships. Boomers are drawn to services that allow them to relate to other people and to find fellowship and things in common with each other. The baby boomers, they love how-to sermons. They want to know how to grow spiritually. They want to know how to become better parents. They want to know how to become better grandparents. They want to know things like how to better deal with anger and how to better deal with anxiety or how to better deal with depression and other problems that come up in life. The things that motivate baby boomers are family, friends, and fulfillment. They are ready to do whatever they can to fulfill Christ's commands. Baby boomers, please stand up. Stay standing. You began, let me say it again, you began this process of change in society and in the church. And we couldn't do it without you. And we need you. And we love you. We value what you have done and what you are continuing to do. You are a vital part of the future of Mayo Christian Church. And we love you. Give them a hand. You can have a seat. Once again, us busters, stand up. Stand up if you're a buster. Sociologists are still debating about us. They're saying that our attitude can be summed up in one word: spontaneous. That's why I fly by the seat of my pants. Busters are at our best, not when things are structured, but when we have a chance to be spontaneous. Change is a real part of our makeup. I mentioned earlier that a key word for the builder's style of worship is reverence. Do you want to know what a buster prefers? Energy and excitement. A buster seems to worship best when there's volume and intensity. No wonder that sometimes there's tensions between the generations, right? The busters, we want to tackle the tough issues. We don't want to dance around them. Things like premarital sex, abortion, and war. Do you want to know how to motivate a buster? Through a challenge. A buster will buy into a cause. A buster will buy into a project the quickest. They will sign up for mission projects and things like that. If a buster sees a need, he or she will often rise to the challenge. Busters, I applaud your dedication to the causes that you believe in. And let me tell you something. We need you, we appreciate y'all, and we love you. Give them a hand. As you're sitting down, people used to say about you busters, people used to say that you are the future of the church. No, you are the church of today. We need you and we appreciate you. Now, what about the millennials and the G-Zers or Xers, whatever? I'm worried about you. The things that you have to face are things that we never had to. Our cheap church, even though we have a great children's program and we do a great job and we've seen our kids grow up to be successful teenagers and young adults, our church needs to invest and to very seriously consider what more that we should be and could be doing to help you today, because you are facing things that nobody in history has ever had to face. We love you and we're so proud that you're here. With all of that being said, can you see how different that every generation is? The differences between the generations, they can either be a source of tension in the church or they can be our greatest strength. What's it going to take to demonstrate our unity to the world outside of the church looking at us? Well, I think at least 3 things it's going to take. The first step is to recognize and appreciate how different that other people are from us. Life would be so boring if everybody was the same. Every generation makes a unique contribution that other generations quite simply cannot make. And we at Mayo, we do a great job demonstrating how to be united in the body of Christ. And y'all all need to keep it up. Number 2, determine, pay attention. Every generation needs to determine what's worth fighting for. The color of the carpet is not worth fighting for. Music is not worth fighting for. Biblical principles, that's what's worth fighting for. Your grandchildren, that's what's worth fighting for. Your kids, that's worth fighting for. Keeping the church in general, not just Mayo, but all the churches alive and thriving, that's what's worth fighting for. And I could go on and make this a 2-hour sermon on this. Y'all remember the differences between builders, boomers, and busters is? It's not biblical. It's preferences. In Philippians chapter 2, verses 3 and 4 says this. Don't do anything only to get ahead. Don't do it because you're proud. Instead, be humble. Value others more than yourselves. None of you should look out just for your own good. Each of you should also look out for the good of others. And let me tell you something about Mayo Christian Church. As long as I am alive and as long as I'm the preacher here, we will always fight. And we will always stand on the Bible, which is God's Word, and what He commands. But we will never, ever fight over preferences. Ever. The day we do, my retirement's going to start early and me and Samantha's moving to Florida. It ain't going to happen. When differences come up, we've got to ask, is this a Bible issue or is it one of our own preferences? Remember, Lawrence Harris always said it, but it wasn't from him. It's been said for generations. Methods always change. Principles never do. The Bible never changes, but methods will change. Number 3, get to know and love someone from another generation. It's Stanley, and I thought it just came so well together because I didn't even give a sermon teaser yesterday on Facebook. He pointed it out. Bobby talked about it during Sunday school. We are known at Mayo to the community around us as being a loving church. I love how you see Bobby Nance and everybody else going around hugging each other, telling them they love them. I love the camaraderie, the friendship, the genuine care and concern that each of you show for each other. We do this one perfect. But if you don't for some reason, you need to do this one. Get to know and get to love somebody from the other generations. I love how Bobby Nance, one of the oldest, takes under his wing Glenn Clark and other young people in our church. I love how Randy Clark takes an interest in one of the youngest people in our church, Spencer. I love it all. How everybody is so involved with each other of different ages, with different preferences, with different likes. Y'all do it so great, and I'm so proud of you. You need to be praying for the people that are of different ages and different generations. So as we close, I ask you this. What kind of people can God use? Well, it's simple. God uses people of every age, every background, who are willing to do what David did. And that is serve God's purpose in our generation. Will you do that? You will if you want this church to be alive for the 6th generation that's coming. Won't you? If you want the church to be alive, you better believe you'll do it. Right now, you have an opportunity to come forward and give your life to the Creator and to the starter of the greatest thing that was ever created, the Church of Jesus Christ. If you've never been baptized, maybe today is your opportunity. Maybe you've already been baptized. Maybe you fell away somewhere through the years. Maybe today is the day that you come forward and rededicate your life and get back on fire for the Lord and help keep this church thriving for the next generation. Or maybe the day is the day that you move your membership here to Mayo Christian Church. We got a lot of work to do. We got a lot of things to accomplish. But the catch is, we don't know how long that we're going to be around as individuals alive, and we don't know how long that before Jesus is going to return. So that means we have a lot of work to do, and we need all the people, all the hands on deck to help us accomplish that work that we can. So maybe you want to join us here at Mayo, and I'll be the first to tell you, as much as I brag about y'all, we are not a perfect church. We can always do more. But I will tell you this as well. God's hand is and has been on this church. And I believe in every single one of you that you will help carry the gospel forward. I got faith and confidence in you 100%. Right now, we're going to stand up and we're going to worship, and we're going to do it a little differently. Jessica Riggs, who shared her testimony, which was amazing, Wednesday night here at church. Hopefully she's going to be coming and doing it on a Sunday morning for us all here in the near future. But they closed and she shared one of the songs that had an impact that helped carry her through her breast cancer and through her recovery. And that song is a powerful song. So what we're going to do is we're going to stand up. And I want you can sing along with it, or you can pray, you do whatever you want. But as this song is playing, if you got a decision to make, I'll be standing up here and you meet me down front. Mayo, the best church I've ever been a part of, the best people I've ever known, and I cannot wait to see. I'm so proud of what He's done through your lives already, and I cannot wait to see what He does through every one of you, no matter what generation you're in. I love y'all, and I'm proud of every one of you, but always strive to do better and to do more. Let's stand and let's worship.